pounds. He's incredible. He's been studying with Gish and Michael for a very long time, and I was honored I got to listen to him teach on my retreat. But I haven't met him yet. But it's coming this weekend. He starts on Thursday night at Jivamukti with a meditation and discussion. And then there's going to be more personal development intensive workshops at Kula in Williamsburg on Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 8. So that's really, really exciting. And then coming up the following week or 2 weeks after, the following weekend, 24, 25. Actually, it's those 2 weekends. Okay. So 24, 25, and then the following weekend also. Lama Ted Lafferty is going to be teaching the second chapter of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is really exciting for anyone who studies yoga. And even if you don't, this is about cleansing, which is perfect for the spring, and kriyas, and really, really interesting stuff that we don't actually get a whole lot of in-depth teaching on often. So it'll be really exciting and new. And then I just found out about an hour ago that they're having a dedication ride for Erica Abbott this weekend on Saturday. It's at 3, so it collides with this. But if you have a bike and you're in Williamsburg, if you knew our friend Erica, who passed in August from a bike accident, it was a really beautiful way to celebrate her memory. Anyone else?
Yes. Do I have to kneel like this too? We're looking for a web person to help manage John's site and it's becoming the ACI New York site that we started with Esther some months ago, and she's gone away. So Pete Heatley and I were collecting files, video files and audio files, and we're looking for somebody who feels comfortable working. I think it was in WordPress was what she started it on. Do you remember? It was WordPress, right? Yeah, so we're looking for somebody who's comfortable working in that, and we would supply audio and video files to put on the site and keep John's personal site organized. So if you're that person, come talk to me, or if you know someone who might be interested, if you can pass that information on to them to come talk to me, and we're going to try to build up both of these sites.
Thank you. This weekend in Howell, New Jersey, where Gish and Michael studied and where Ken Rinpoche taught, there's a teaching on Bodhicitta both days of the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, taught by Gyume Khyentse Rinpoche, who's a very, very great master and advanced teacher. So if you have a chance, there's 2 sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, on both Saturday and Sundays. And if you need information about how to get out there, I can give you that information.
Yep. Well, and this Thursday I teach ACI 3 applied meditation, but I'm giving away my class to Geshe Tashi Dorje, who was the Umse at Saramay Monastery, where these teachings came from for 15 years. It's his first visit in the United States after finishing his stint as the Umse, which is the chanting master at Saramay. He's going to teach on karma this Thursday here at 7:30 to 9:30 before he returns back to India. Please come.
Okay. Now, this is about creating holy images in the world. Perhaps you wonder what these beautiful images are that have been hanging here at the Three Jewels for at least 2 months. All of them still here. They're available to you. And they were created by a beautiful man named Ben Christian, who has studied with Geshe Michael. Some of you may know him. He lives in Australia. He is a very lovely and talented man, and he most generously dedicated his artwork that he created, which are done on the computer. And if you look closely, they're so incredibly beautiful. But the generous nature of his gift is even more beautiful. And what he has done is he has supplied at least 2 of each of these images that you see, plus more. We have them up in the storage, and we're going to create a rack and put them out unframed or unmatted so that the cost can be less if that's a barrier to you deciding that you're going to do this. So you have 3 options. You have framed in glass, you have matted, and you have unmatted. And all of the proceeds, here's a little flyer about what all the images are, and it's out there on the shelf. And here's a bio about Ben. And if you notice, the most important thing is that 100% of the donation of your purchase goes to the Asian Classics Input Project, from which all of this has come from directly, word for word. Okay? That's 25 years ACIP has been around this year. So this is your chance to create something beautiful in the world by buying one of these and hanging it in a holy place or giving it to someone, pass it along. And then the donation goes to ACIP and honoring these beautiful teachings that we get here. So not the cheapest thing in the world to buy, but considering the merit well, what's more than the merit? Considering the merit, be great if you could help out. This is a big year for us, and things are going really well, so we're in an upward spiral with finances, so it's really great to have people contribute. So please, if you can, take a look, pass it on, give a gift, tell your friends. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about practice for a minute, right? The four forces is one practice of many. We talk about offerings, prostrations. We have other commitments, other practices, right? And I remember Holy Geshe Michael said he did an experiment once where he was in retreat and he got up at 4 in the morning and did nothing but all of his practice commitments all day long to just see how long it would take and if it was possible. So he went from 4 in the morning until midnight. He wasn't able to finish all of his commitments and practices that he'd been given. So the advice is you have to pick and choose and be selective. You can't do everything, right? And it's not possible to do all the practices you come across and all the practices you hear. We have to be selective, pick something and concentrate and focus and simplify our practice, right? Otherwise we turn into one of these people who rushes through everything in the morning to get it done and don't think about it, and it's not very meaningful. And then 4 or 5 years later, not much has happened and we don't know why. So very important to not become one of these overcrowded Dharma people who's trying to do 50 practice and just ends up being like nervous and schizophrenic and stressed out and worried all the time that they're not doing their practice right. So please don't use it that way. You have to keep your commitments, and it's very important to do the four forces. Karma expands, and you want to be doing it regularly, daily. You can do it on your cushion, you can do it on the subway, you can do it while you're walking down the street. You do it while you're lying on the couch. It's not one of these things where you've got to be sitting nicely in full lotus posture to do karmic purification, right? So try to train yourself to do it on a regular basis, and try to do it sweetly and thoughtfully, right, and nicely. If you can't do it sweetly every day, be sure to try to do it at least every 2 or 3 days. Better do it well every other day than poorly every day. Because not much will come of it if you do it poorly every day. So give it some time and make it nice and do it sweetly, right? And do it powerfully, so that so that you can get some results, right? Okay. So Master Shantideva talks a lot. He goes into a lot of detail about yupa, regret, and he gets into regret in 3 different stages. And the first stage, you could say, is regret about the stupid things that we did in this life before we died. Bad choices that we made in this life. Right? Regret focused on what's going on in this life before you die. There's a homework question that says, what's the most general thing Master Shantideva says triggers regret? And basically the answer is understanding the 3 results of your karma. There's a karmic result to what we do on 3 different levels, right? And then I'm not going to go into it tonight, but just because it's on your homework, I mention it. So whenever we say anything that hurts another person, or think anything, or say anything, or do anything that hurts another person, when you do anything that hurts another person, or say anything that hurts another person, when you think anything that hurts another person or could lead to hurting another person, that's a bad karma, right? So you make a distinction between thinking a thought which could lead to hurting another person, right? Like if you get annoyed in your mind, it doesn't hurt anyone directly, it's in your mind, right? But it could lead you to hurt another person. It could lead you to yell at another person or whatever you're going to do, right? So they say that even a thought which could lead to hurting another person is a bad karma, okay? The only thing you need to do to plant the negative imprint in your mind is to have awareness, right? Karma is planted through your observing yourself, engaging in the undertaking, right? If you are conscious and sentient, you are collecting karma, all right? So there's no escaping, right? 4th chapter of the Abhidharmakosha, when you see yourself doing something, when you hear yourself saying something, when you are aware of yourself thinking something, karma is planted in your mind. And it ripens into your whole world and your experience of the world, right? Everything in this room, everything about your body, all of your interactions, all of your experiences are just imprints flowering, right? They ripen, they arise in your mind, and they are your world. They create your world, the perceptual reality of your world, right? So your world, our world, and our experience of our world is a bunch of imprints going off in our mind. So it's determined by everything we thought, said, and did before, right? I mean, it's kind of scary and kind of exciting, right? Because on the one hand, I go like, oh my God, my life is screwing up. I can't imagine all what I must have done before. I better start thinking about it. I better start looking at it, and I better start purifying it, right? So, but then it's kind of exciting too that you could actually do that. You're not just doomed to suffer, right? It's like, oh, at least there's an opportunity to do something, right? We can manipulate the world by working at the level of the karmic seeds, right? If everything is imprints, we can change the world and create a new world, a better world. So, have to get rid of the lousy imprints. So the slightest thing that we think, say, or do, 3 things are going to happen. 3 karmic results, okay? So the first karmic result is called a ripened result. It primarily relates to the realm you're born in, right? Born in a lower realm or a human realm or a higher realm, right? So, the mind does not stop when we die, right? It's a Western superstition. There's not a shred of evidence or any proof that the mind stops when the body stops. The mind and body are related, but the mind continues even when the body stops. So the mind is indivisible, clear, aware, can't be divided, can't be weighed, can't be measured, right? So can't be split. So the mind must go on. It does not end. It's different substance than the body. When the body dies, the mind doesn't sit there. It actually streams on and continues on, and has another rebirth, right? It's not that they're just minds are piling up in the morgues, Somehow the morgues become crowded with too many minds. So it doesn't take a big logical leap to understand that our senses, our physical senses, are limited in their perceptual ability. We can only perceive a very narrow spectrum of light and energy. We can't perceive most energy with our senses, right? I mean, we can confirm so many worlds and so many beings scientifically that we can't perceive directly with our senses, right? So it's crazy to think that this is the only realm that there is, and the things that we can directly confirm with our senses are all that exists. We know it's not true already. And to think that somehow after we die we're going to end up in the East Village again is a crazy thought, I mean, it's like, oh, it's okay, I'll have a nice body, I'll have the East Village, it'll be about the same as it is now, right? The likelihood of ending up on this planet is very, very small, in fact, and there are millions and millions and millions of suffering realms, millions of different kinds of beings of suffering realms. And so Master Shantideva says, you have to go by yourself, no one can go with you. Don't be so crazy to think that this room and this kind of reality is the only choice of where we might end up. There are millions of other possible realities. Most of them very, very bad. Most of them very, very unpleasant. The scriptures say that, this realm, kind of half happy, half sad, half broken, half functioning, is actually a very, very good realm. It's almost as good as you can get. Most of the others are vastly worse than this, vastly more suffering than this. So Master Shantideva goes into this thing about, look, why do you, in the context of, the mind is going to continue, there are all these millions and millions of miserable realms that the mind can go to. This is just about the best realm that one can exist in, if one is not enlightened. Master Shantideva goes into this thing where he says, why do you do the bad deeds you do? Why do we lie, right? Look, what do we think we're going to get when we lie? I mean, if somebody lies, what are they going to get? I mean, they want generally some money, some stuff, whatever, right? I mean, we lie to help someone or we lie to hurt someone, right? I mean, basically, ourselves. And so Master Shantideva says, it doesn't make much sense. I mean, we think we're getting something, right? So maybe we lie, we get a car, we get some money, we get some food, but it only lasts for a short time. You know, I mean, we're going to die. The physical form that we're lying to serve is doomed. It's going to end, and we don't know when, right? So he says, it's crazy to lie to get something that's very temporary, that you know is going to end, because what's left then? The lie. After your body's done, after your body's died, your mind goes on with a lie, the karma of a lie. So Master Shantideva says it's this crazy idea we have that it's worth lying to serve this body when the body's going to end and the mind stream and the negative karma are going to go on. You know? So, you know, he says it's going to die. It's just stupid to invest in a body that's going to die. You know, why are we putting all this time and energy into investing in a body that's going to die? He goes into this long thing about how meaningless it is to lie to get money so you can sit in a better apartment for a couple of years, you know, and then the body's done, and then your mind lasts forever, along with the negativity that it's filled up with, right? And so we're left with all the negativity, which doesn't disappear. All the imprints that we've placed upon our mind don't disappear. The mind doesn't disappear, but the body does. And so he says, you know, you're crazy to trade a future imprint that's going to last for a very long time for a temporary nice bed or a little bit of food or something like that. It's so disproportionate. It's so out of balance. It's so lacking in understanding. And it says the lie stays. You know, the body goes. Why would you do that? You know, the mind will not finish when you die. It'll be chock full of all the negative stuff that we did. So it's like he says, it's like a dream. You know, you have this beautiful, amazing dream, right? You're having this incredible dream, and then you wake up, but there's nothing left. It's gone. The content it's meaningless. It's pointless. He says it's the same thing when you die. You know, everything you've done and all of the experience of this life. You know, you die. It's like a dream. It's irrelevant. It's done. It's gone. It's just like waking up from a dream. But the imprints stay. The imprints continue on, and they create your reality. So that's the first level he talks about, where he talks about regret. It's like you got to understand that. And so then he talks about the moment of death. And he says, you know, the moment of death is unlike any other time. And all the lies that we told to take care of ourselves are worthless, because the thing we're trying to take care of isn't there anymore. We're trying to take care of the body. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's not even part of us anymore. And, you know, he says we lie to help our family. We lie to hurt our friends. And we're stuck with all these lies. And, you know, you just die and go on by yourself alone. You go on with this mind full of lies and negativity all by yourself. The people you lied to help, they're dead too. They're gone. They're irrelevant to you. You know, all the people that you thought about in your life, all the people you lied to help, they're no longer relevant after you die. But you're still stuck with all that negativity. You know, all those karmas. He says your enemies die, your friends die, your family die, you die. So what's the point of lying for those things? You're lying for something that's going to be gone anyway. So that's his first argument about regret. You know, when we die, we're alone with our consciousness full of lies, and none of those other people are around anymore that we work so hard to lie for. Right? Okay. So he says, was it worth it? Right? Because the seeds planted in your mind are very difficult to get rid of. You know, once the seeds are planted, they're very difficult to get rid of. So that's his first argument. The second argument, he says, this is in the time of ancient India. He says, you know, I saw a man who was sentenced to have his hand cut off for stealing. And that's how they used to do it, right? And so he was in a cell in the morning. The jailers came and got him, and to take him from the cell and have his hand chopped off. And of course they had to drag him out, kicking and screaming and crying and begging. And Master Shantideva gets to thinking about it, and he says, you know, if knowing you're going to have your hand cut off makes you act so crazy, changes your face, changes your appearance, you know, you become a totally different person, right? Just from the idea of having your hand cut off, what do you think is going to happen to you at the time of death? When you lose all the parts of your body. It's a lot worse than that. He says it's 20 times worse than that. It's 100 times worse than that. You know? You're going to lose the whole thing. And he says there's this special kind of pain, which is partly mental, partly physical, which comes at the time of death. And it's not like anything we could have experienced. The scriptures say it's nothing like we've experienced or we can imagine. It's very unique. And that can't imagine what it's like. It goes on for 10 or 20 minutes, 30 minutes after the brain has stopped functioning. And he says, imagine the guy getting his hand cut off and multiply it by 100, and that's what the experience of death is going to be like, that going, kicking and screaming and fighting. And people say, at the moment of death I'll do POA and I'll guide my consciousness and I'll get enlightened. It's like, no way. There's this visceral feeling of, I don't want to die, I don't want to lose my body, I'm not going to go. And this is, with every aspect of one's being, there's a fight to not go and to not die, right? So in that frame of mind, we'll fight against death. And we can't imagine then what we experience. At the time of death, everything becomes highly exaggerated. And in that, well, even before that, in that frame of mind, not wanting to die and fighting against it, Master Shantideva says it's possible to sort of look ahead at one's life, look ahead to one's future. And there's a special kind of insight that one gets where one sees all of the negativities they've done in their life and has this tremendous regret about all the things they've done wrong in their life. It's this classic thing of, oh, God, if you let me live, I'll repent and I'll change that and I'll be better and I'll reform myself. Just let me live and I won't, yell at anyone, whatever. You know what I'm saying. So he says, something comes up in your mind at the moment of death, and there's this tremendous regret that happens at the moment of death about how we lived our lives and the content of our lives and what we did with our lives. And so that's the second kind of regret that Master Shantideva talks about. And he says, your whole life is going to go before your eyes, and you have to try to get that regret now. You have to anticipate that death. And you have to try to get in touch with that feeling of regret now so that you don't have it then, right? You have to try to, don't wait until you're dying to have that regret, right? Think about the things you regret now and clean them with karmic purification so that when death comes, you can die with a clear conscience. You can die with a clear heart, right? At the moment of death, the point of death meditation, Jason Kappa, is to feel like everything's okay, I'm clean, no problem. I can die well. And, I confess the worst things I've done, my heart is clear, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, I practice sincerely, and then there's no problem at the time of death. Don't have suffering at the time of death. So, Master Shantideva says, when are you going to die? You don't know when you're going to die. He said, don't wait to do the 4 forces, do it tonight. Don't think I'm going to do the 4 forces next week or I'm going to start later, right? You don't know when we're going to die. Do the 4 forces tonight. Do it every night. Do it every day. So pick the worst thing. Don't worry about the little things, the gray areas, the marginal borderline things. As they say, pick the worst thing. Pick the greatest enemy, right? Purify your greatest issue first. And it drains a huge amount of negative energy away from you, right? So start there. And it's this confession, you just admit it, right? Clean it, admit it, confess it, and and do it now. So when the sense powers shut down at the time of death, everything becomes very exaggerated. Consciousness shifts to a very subtle state, and very, very tiny pain becomes magnified intensely and becomes extreme chaos and suffering. So having this kind of regret in the mind at the moment of death is magnified massively into incredible suffering at the time of death. At the time of death, they say it's like a bad acid trip. After you lose all of your sense faculties, then and the brain is stopped, and at that point the mind starts its more subtle journey and hallucinations based upon what's going on in the mind. And so things become extremely painful for like a half an hour, and the internal struggle starts with the mind. And so there are certain stages that the mind goes through, which is the same for everybody. But if there's regret in the mind and pain and suffering in the mind, then it becomes very, very difficult and unpleasant at the time of death. So, which is probably why we struggle so much when we're close to dying, right? It's not like we've had thousands, millions, billions of lives and deaths, right? On some level, I think we must know what that's like, even if we don't consciously remember it. We don't want to go through that again, right? It's not like you walk around the streets and people are indifferent to dying, right? It's not like people are like, yeah, I might die today, I might not, it doesn't matter to me, I don't care. I could be hit by a bus, so what? Living, dying, it's all the same. This is not how it is, right? People want to live. People spend their entire lives struggling to live. No one's walking around saying, yeah, death, no problem. Right? Anytime, any place, no worries, I'll do it. It's not it, right? It's not happening. So, so that we struggle to live. No normal person wants to die, and probably because of that, so many experiences of the pain of death. Most people die without being ready, without getting ready, right? And as people get older, they start to focus on that more and more. Focus on getting ready to die. And often it's too late, unfortunately. Now they go to church 6 days a week instead of 5 days a week. My dad does that. Started going to church. I'm going to church 7 days a week. It's 80. But will it make a difference? Well, hopefully. So anyway, Master Shantideva says that look, even in this life, you can see that doing things to hurt other people is stupid, because what you're trying to get for yourself doesn't last more than a couple of years, and the negative imprints go on after everything else has ended. Right? It's just worthless. So. What are you going to get? A place to eat, stay, some stuff to eat. So what? The imprints go on for a very long time. So, and then he says, if at the time of death you have regret, that pain is multiplied vastly, tremendously. And then he starts getting into future lives, and he describes all the other realms that are possible. And he says, look, if you want to talk about regret, if you've collected all this negativity, and you take rebirth, and you end up in a suffering realm, it's too late. You have zero options. It's not like you're going to say, oh, I didn't mean to take rebirth in the hell realm. Let me just go back and take a different rebirth instead. You can't do it. It doesn't work that way, right? So Master Shantideva says, the other kind of regret is the regret you have of actually taking rebirth in a suffering realm, and you have no choice and no options and nothing you can do about it. You're stuck, right? And there's huge regret there, right? You can't just say, I'd rather not be here, right? So anyway, if you believe the scriptures at all, this is a totally great realm, and most of the other realms are really miserable, bad places. And once you get there, there's nothing you can do. And it's like there's this feeling of like, stupid, I can't believe, if you remember, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe that I put myself here, right? So, I shouldn't be here. So what we're trying to get to is the ability to develop this perfect love, right? Loving other people as much as we love ourselves. That's bodhicitta, right? So Master Shantideva says, look, not possible unless you learn to do purification, okay? You can't have this perfect love unless you do purification. And the scriptures say, go after the worst one first. Start tonight, do the 4 forces, right? Take your time, do a good job. In Tibetan they call it chakpa, which is a kind of release or opening. The best way to do it is a kind of catharsis of opening oneself and releasing the negativity we're carrying. I don't know if you ever had like a good release, but it feels awfully good. Whether it's just a big cry or whatever. Some kind of cathartic release, right? So, best way to do it is to go to another person and there's this aspect of being embarrassed. It's like, oh, I'm really going to tell another person what I did? What are they going to think about me? So embarrassment is actually very effective for restraint. It's a very effective contributor to restraint. So they say, find a close friend, a good Dharma friend, someone who's not indiscreet, right? And just tell them, confess to them, right? You can just say, I did this and I did that. And not someone who's just going to say, oh, don't worry about it, Joe, it's okay. It's fine, no worries. It's somebody who's going to take you to task and say, well, you confessed the exact same thing last week. Why'd you do it again? You should stop doing that. It's not okay, right? So find a real Dharma friend and admit it. And it becomes very much an embarrassing deterrent, right? So, okay. So if we don't go home and do karmic purification, the class is worthless, right? These classes are worthless if we don't put it into practice. So I strongly encourage you to go home and do the karmic purification tonight, It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but do it sweetly, Do a prostration or 2 or 3, Think of a holy being with you, right? Put a cookie out, make an offering. It doesn't matter. Just go in your kitchen cabinet and take something and put it out, right? What was the third one?
Refuge.
Go for refuge, right? Think about karma and emptiness, right? Bodhicitta. And then, think about the worst thing that you've ever done in your life. your greatest problem, your greatest suffering in your life. Start there, and go through the practice, right? So, if we don't start tonight, then forget it, And if we're not happier, down the road than we are now, then it's worthless and it's not worth doing, If we're sitting here going to classes and our lives are not improving, then something's wrong, and you shouldn't be doing it because it's not bringing the results, So the idea is we're trying to get rid of all this old bad karma in our mind and have better lives, right? My personal experience is that it can be a wild ride, Saying that if your life isn't getting better means you should quit is not the same thing as saying life is always going to be good, right? Life is not always going to be good, even if you're doing nice purification and nice practice and nice meditation, right? Life can be a roller coaster, and often is. And sometimes our practice accentuates, the ride. It brings us to higher highs and lower lows, right? But in any case, you have to check in and say, am I having these incredible mind-blowing experiences happening? And if so, they're coming from somewhere. Something's causing it, practice. Or is my life just slowly, consistently, steadily getting better? Is my mind happier? Is my life better? And if it is, then you're doing something right, and try to continue and do more. And if it's not, then you got to check in and see if see what the problem is, right? So, if we don't learn the purification practices and do them, then we shouldn't expect anything. That's just how it is, right? So please do. All right.
Saji Pukir Jinshin Metokchan Rio Linshin Yindegam Badi Sangye Shindu Miteguarhi Drokun Namda Shinla Chiparsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Ninyam Tayami Gawadi Gawakun Sunam Yeshe Tsaksok Shin Sunam Yeshe Legend Way Rambha Vinita Parsho.
See the holy being at your crown becoming brighter and smaller until it's a small orb of golden light which melts into your heart, giving you blessings of your mind stream. By the power of the virtue of our intention, by the power of these holy teachings, may every negativity be instantly purified. May every happiness instantly come to pass. May every being quickly achieve paradise.
Thank you.